right, St. Louis. I'd like to say good morning, St. Louis. Like it's about 5:51 here in Orlando, Florida. 5:51. I'm heading to the gym, St. Louis. I got to get it in. I want to believe that we have to work. You have to work your body as well as your mind. I don't think many of you understand. The body itself, I believe, is the mind. The mind is the body. But they're two separate entities. And they're both trying to take control. What am I saying by that, St. Louis? The mind is the regulator of everything. In other words, without being aware or conscious in a manner in which you need to be conscious, you're not going to understand the things that are there to understand. Unfortunately, before we break free from that body, the mind doesn't give us what it needs to give us in order to break free. In other words, the mind has to strengthen intellectually. The mind does. So it can literally change the sound of the body. The body has a different sound. The mind is trying to regulate it, but the body goes one way, and the mind is imprisoned to that body. The mind is. So as a result of the mind being imprisoned, the mind is incapable of strengthening the body to produce the sound in which it's supposed to produce. In other words, the mind and the body is supposed to become one. Once the mind and the body becomes one, you change your reality in space and time. In other words, just imagine if you had space at absolute zero and Earth, number 3 planet down here. You're so far away from space. Neptune is roughly trillions of miles away, 165 years to orbit the sun one time, but the Earth take 365 days supposedly to orbit the sun. So that tells you that the Earth is much closer to the sun than the most distant planet, which is Neptune. Then you can go on from Mars all the way up to Jupiter, Saturn, continue all the way up to Neptune. But don't get caught up in the planets, because that's what we named them, planets. And the reason we named them planets because we thought they were physically there, but nothing's physical. They're actually being encoded by your mind. And as a result, your mind has the ability to become aware of what it now called planets. And as a result, you literally think you are going to see grandmother in your car, but yet everything is in your mind. Just like if you're in a coma and you wake up after 2 to 3 months of being in that coma, you might forget everything that happened before you went into the coma and think you're just starting off as it was. But what happened is the time. We're literally bathing in darkness, and darkness is time. You get 70 to 80 years of life. And many of you are pleased with 70 to 80 years of life because you can't think beyond what you have. If you begin to see outside of what you know, you'll know there's somewhere to go. Until then, you're not going to know, so you're not going to seek to find. Once you begin to know, you then have enough power to know more, just like a computer exponentially growing, upgrading from analog to 5G. What's after 5G? Is it possible there's 500G, 5 billion G, 5 trillion G? Is that possible? I'm one to believe that is possible. I'm one to believe that our mind has the ability to evolve, to become perfected. I'm one to believe that our mind has the ability to reach the speed of light. And once we reach the speed of light, there's no mass, there's no matter. And as a result, you're no longer moving in time. Time has stopped. No different than when the individual went into space on the movie Interstellar, and he came back and his daughter was older than him, much older. And he had been gone for a small time as far as he was concerned. But yet his daughter, based upon his time, it wasn't the same time on Earth because he wasn't in the gravitational pull. So as a result, his neurons and electrons were synchronizing, whereas his daughter's neurons and electrons were not synchronizing. So that gave her more time to perish. not time to synchronize, because in her mind, she was dying. So if he wouldn't have come back, she would have subsequently passed, but he was only gone for a short period of time. But yet, in her eyes, he was gone probably 40 to 50 years. But in his eyes, he was probably gone, several months, because he was moving at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. But yet, hers is 60 miles per hour. So if you do the math, 186,000 miles per second and 60,000 miles per hour, the person that's moving at the speed is going to be truly younger than you. And as a result, it's not literal younger. It's just that you're dying. Your cells are mutating. You're getting sick. You're getting viruses. That's one of the reasons there are plagues right now, and cancer and all kinds of infirmities, is because we haven't reached the speed of light to cause time to stop. I know this is something that many of you are not accustomed to hearing, but we must visit this, and we must come to the realization that at one point they wouldn't have thought computers were possible. At one point they wouldn't have thought satellites were possible. At one point they wouldn't have thought cell phones, cars, or trains were possible. Is it possible that we haven't reached a higher level of development in mind? And as a result, once we reach that level of development in mind, we have the ability to stop time and go the other way, towards life, towards being born again, as they call it. But yet, unfortunately, we had those that came before us that could have considered themselves prophets and apostles called by God, but yet they don't know who God is. They fail to realize the power is in them. It's not necessarily their fault. It's just that they've been deceived. They've been literally tossed to and from, and unquestionably, undoubtedly led astray. So I'm wanting to say this. I'm not going to allow my grandbaby, my children, your grandbaby, your parents, your relatives, friends, sisters, and brothers to go through. We have to bring forth what we now know. And as a result of bringing forth what we now know, we can all collectively come together and fuse at the micro and begin to see the world through a different set of eyes. And as a result of seeing the world through a different set of eyes, I'm wanting to believe that we can take any mountain that's before us. And once we take that mountain, St. Louis, Chi-Town, Alabama, Georgia, the Bahamas, New York, Florida, once we take that mountain, the game will change. Come on, St. Louis, that time is now for us to hold our shoulders back, hold our head up, and say all or nothing. We've died for too long. It's time for truth, and we shall bring that truth. Trust me. May God bless you all and get you to understand I don't play the radio. Not only that, I'm fearless. God bless. Come on, St. Louis. Time is now. Shout out to my grandbabies. Love you guys.